Hello, my name is Mr. Chu, and you're welcome to my study room. This is where I share my personal study with people who are willing to study with me. And in an earlier video, we studied on the tips on answering objective questions. And today's study is going to be on tips on answering essay and supply type questions. And without any further delay, I want us to go straight to the day's lesson. Yeah. So, how do we answer essay and supply type questions effectively? Number one, write down what you are afraid you forget. Are you worried you forget a formula or something when you need it? Well, write it on the test. As long as the test is started, and unless your teacher says otherwise, you can write whatever notes you want to write for yourself. The most important reason to use this strategy is that it allows you to stop worrying about forgetting tough information. Little concerns like that can effectively shut you down when you are too hung up on them. If you have the chance to reduce that anxiety when you should take it. Yeah, so this one is self-explanatory. The first point is self-explanatory. It says that because you are likely or you may forget some of the things you wanted to write, immediately you get your answer sheet, turn the back of your answer sheet and write points down, points you need. Or if it is a mathematics or science, the formulas you use in answering some of the questions ahead of you, and you think you might forget them, they are difficult formulas, you write them down at the back of your answer sheet so that when you get up, you just go and pick it and then you are gone. So that is the first point. You write down what you are afraid you forget. Then point two, words you use to fill in the gaps must make each sentence meaningful. This one is just simple and it applies more to supply type questions where you are to fill in the blank space. And here, just as the point said, you must make sure whenever a sentence is left for you to complete, the words or phrases you use to complete each of the sentence should make sense to you yourself answering the question. And then it should make sense to another person who is reading, which is in this case should be the examiner. Should make sense to the person. The sentence should be meaningful, very meaningful to you, the one answering the question, and the one reading your question. Then also, the sentence should be grammatically correct. Should be grammatically correct to you and then to any other person reading. So let's move on to the next point. Point three, make sure you use words of the same class in same sentences if the question asks you to replace a word with another word. Examples, nouns must replace nouns, verbs replace verbs, past tense replaces past tense, etc. So here, that is it. Words are of different classes, nouns, verbs, adjectives, and so on and so forth. So the point here is that if you are required to replace a noun, you must make sure the word you are using to replace the noun is also a noun. For example, someone went to the market and bought something, and you have to replace the word bought. So one of the words that can be used to replace the word buy is purchase. But as we have seen or heard, the word but is in the simple past tense. So if you want to replace the word but, you don't have to make the sentence meaningful. You don't have to go and use purchase just to replace but, because you know that another word for buy is purchase. But rather, but is in the simple past tense. So purchase, instead of using purchase, you should use purchased, which is the past tense of purchase, or simple past of purchase. So that when the person is reading, the new word you have used to replace the word but is also in the past tense and doesn't change any the sentence in any way. But you just replace a word that is synonymous to the word but. That is it. Then there are also words that can assume different classes. For example, the same word can be a verb, it can be a noun, it can be an adjective depending on what sentence it is used in. You must be very, very careful about such words. For example, a word like education. So, to educate someone, the educate there is a verb. And then education is a noun. So, if you are replacing education, then you must make sure you replace it with another word that is a noun, but not to use educate, which is a verb, and we will have a different meaning, though the same word, but if it's a verb, it has a different meaning, because verbs are actions that when they ask you to perform, you should be able to perform. That is a verb. And then nouns are names. Adjectives are describing words, they describe nouns and pronouns. You see, so we should know some of these things so that when we are answering questions, we can use the right class of word to replace a word in a sentence. You are to inform someone. So to inform is a verb and information is a noun. So you cannot just use the two of them anyhow. So you must use information when you want to use it as a noun, and then you must use to inform when you want to use it as a verb. These are just to mention a few. And to know more about things like this, you must make very good use of your dictionary. Your dictionary must be your friend. Your dictionary shouldn't only be used to find out the meaning and spellings of words, but also the dictionary should be used to check whether to check the class of a word, to check whether it's a noun, a verb, or whatever it is, so that that will help you to use it appropriately. If you want to describe a verb or how something is done, then you know that it is an adverb that you need to use, and so on and so forth. So when you check the meaning of a word, check whether the word is a noun, a verb, or whatever it is from the dictionary before you will use it. So that is point four. I think I have spent enough time on that. No, that is point three, rather. Sorry. I think I've spent enough time on that. Let's go to point four. Point four says that state a point before expanding or explaining it. That is just at that. I realized that most of the students, when they want to explain a point or when they are writing essays, they go around winding around a point, writing a lot of explanations, and even after reading and you ask them, what at all are you trying to say? They are not even able to pinpoint one thing. Or at times in doing that, you will see that they've even joined different points. They end up writing, touching so many points together. But the right thing for us to do here is for us to state a point before we explain. You should state a point before you explain. For example, you are asked to write about the benefits of agriculture to a nation. Then you know that for every nation, agriculture serves as a source of employment to the people. It provides income, or people get income by participating in activities of agriculture. We get medicine from agriculture. We get food from agriculture, just to mention a few. So by doing something like this, you need to state these points, then you now begin to develop each of them. Begin to develop each of them. We get income from agriculture, or agriculture serves as a source of employment to the people. Then how do you explain that? You explain people employ others to work on the farms, and then after the food stuff, or after the farm produce is mature, people come to harvest it and they are paid, or people are employed to come and harvest it, and people drivers transport it from the farm into the market, and then the people who sell it, they are also, it is a source of employment to them. People who process the farm produce, the final produce, they are also, it also serves as a source of employment. So by doing this, that you are explaining each of the points, which makes you to develop the essay. So it's very important for you to state the point. After stating the point, you go ahead and explain each of them. Then let's move on to point five quickly. Point five said you should use relevant examples to expand essays in order to meet number of words requirements. So that is just clear. If you are writing, or you are answering an essay question and you want to get more words, the best thing for you to do is to use examples. And it shouldn't just be examples, it should be relevant examples, of course. So you should use relevant examples to expand your essay. You should use relevant examples to expand your essay. Meaning that when you develop the points, you use different examples, and as you are doing that, your words continue to your essay continues to increase in number if you want more words. But don't just think that because you are writing sentences and joining them with and other conjunctions, it automatically your essay will increase in number, and that is what is going to earn you more marks. No, to check the number of words in your, or for you to increase your number of words, it's not just about writing so many words, but it's up to whether the words make meaning and are they relevant to the things you are talking about. That is it. So let's all learn to use examples to develop our essay topics. Then we go on to our essay questions. We go on to my general and closing comments on this lesson. The very first one is always proofread your work before submitting. It will surprise you how many marks you could have lost if you didn't read through your work before submitting. Yes, this is a very, very, very important thing. This is a very, very, very important thing. It is very good that whether objective or essay test or examination, after answering, you give yourself some time to read through your work. Read through your work by one. And if you are already in the habit of doing that, you see that anytime you do that, you give yourself opportunity to make a few corrections in the work. What that means is that if you didn't read through, you would have submitted your work with those mistakes, and marks for essay questions, especially if it is English language, marks will be deducted for each error. So you have to have some time to read through your work and make all corrections. Same applies to objective tests as well. You have to go through your work, because also when you go through your work, you will see that especially for questions you are whose answers you are not sure of, you can see that at times you, after going through, you have some idea about a new answer that can help you to get it right. And also maybe due to other reasons, mistakes, or even one of the things I mentioned in the other video, that you didn't read the whole question before answering. It could be that, but as you come back to read through your question, or your work all over, you see that you realize some mistakes and correct them. It's very, very important, because you can lose so many marks just because you didn't proofread your work to correct simple mistakes you made unintentionally. So it's very important to always proofread your work when you finish. Then the second point is certainty marking. So this is what happens for certainty marking. Here you have answered questions that you were very sure of, like you know the answers before attempting or before choosing. And then you've also mentioned questions that you've also answered questions that you are not too sure of their answers. Then the last one, you've answered questions that you didn't know the answers, but you guess using the steps I stated in the earlier video to help you to guess your answers. So what you do for certainty marking is that you look through and then you mark out the ones that you are sure of. You put a check, that's a correct mark against them. And then the ones that you are not too sure, maybe you use strokes or something, and then another mark for the ones that you don't know. So this is the benefit of that. It helps you to actually have a fair idea of the grade you are likely to score in the exam, whether you have passed the exam or not. It gives you a very fair idea about that, because if about 70 or 80% of the questions you answered, you get a check against them, it means that you answered more than half of the questions correctly. You are very confident of that. Before the guess ones, or the ones that you are not too sure of, if you really did that well, it's likely you get some of those two right. So by that, it gives you a fair idea of the grades you are likely to score in that examination. That is the advantage of certainty marking. Then we go to point three. Save time for when it is save time for when you need it. Your primary goal is to complete everything you know fast. You don't want to waste any extra time on questions that don't require that extra time. The point of getting through the rest of the test quickly is to allow you plenty of time for answering hard questions, then having time for checking your work and estimating your own final grade. Keep this in mind as you are going through the test. Your priorities. First, prioritize. Your first priority is finishing all the work that you instantly know. That means even if you run out of time, you have taken all of the easy points. Your second priority is answering those tough questions and making big guesses. This is where most of your test time should go. Number three, you want to review all your work and make sure to keep track of all the points you scored. That is certainty marking. Don't be afraid to change an answer. Scientific studies have suggested that changing an answer is bad. You might think you ruin your gut instinct, but statistically, you are better off. So, before I end my lesson, I will just take a little time over these steps again, which are just things I explained earlier. So your first priority is getting the easy questions away or out of your way. And then your second priority is what? To now get enough time for the difficult questions that you didn't know from the beginning, but they are very important. You attempt them. And the last one is to go through your work, certainty marking. You go through your work and then you check the ones that you are able to answer effectively. And then the last thing which I didn't say yet is to proofread. I said it earlier. You proofread your work. Okay, I say that one as well. So that is the priority of your work. If you are able to do all of these things, you should be able to work within time. You should be able to work within time, and you should be able to answer essay questions effectively and apply and score higher grade for essay questions. Yeah, so dear friends, this is where we bring today's study to an end. I believe it's been helpful to you how to answer essay questions. I am myself, I'm very, very sure that if you are able to do these things, you should begin to score very high grades in your essay examinations. I hope to see you next time in my study room. So please take your time to watch this video again, share it to friends who you think will need to know how to answer essay questions, and more importantly, subscribe. Subscribe to my channel, Mr. Chu Study Room, so that anytime I have a new video, you'll be updated and we shall learn together. Thank you very much, and then have a nice day. Bye bye.